Now, you've been watching the vetting of the Minister of State's designate at the Finance Ministry, who is being vetted by Parliament. Earlier, as it prepares to send a high-powered government delegation to the country to convince authorities there to accept Ghana's proposal to cancel a $1.7 billion debt.
We have the two federal ministers with us. So clearly, the relationship that you have built is yielding fruits. And it's at a very important time, given where we are with the IMF program.
At what cost will this debt cancellation come to Ghana? We'll find out. Now, also 18 bulk oil distributors queue over 152,000 metric tons of the latest consignment of fuel under the Gold for All deal, with bonds assuring consumers will this time feel the impact of reduction at the pumps. Now, majority leadership appealed to new minority leadership to ignore directive of the NDC to reject the latest ministerial appointment made by President Kojo. We have details as they say they do not intend to use their numbers to push through the president's nominees. Now, China in 2022 announced it was forgiving 23 loans for 17 African countries. China, the largest government creditor to emerging economies, has been accused of debt trap diplomacy. Well, a high-powered government delegation will visit China next week to convince authorities there to accept Ghana's proposal for debt cancellation with the Paris Club as part of the external debt restructuring program. Ghana is hoping to restructure $5.7 billion with China, holding a third of it, amounting to $1.7 billion. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, who is leading the delegation, told a visiting German Minister for Economic Cooperation and Development that China has committed to a bilateral negotiation and is hopeful a deal can be reached to enable Ghana to present a case before the IMF board.
We had the presence of the finance minister in town. Last week we had some 10 or so parliamentarians, and today we have the two federal ministers with us. So clearly the relationship that you have built is yielding fruits. And it's at a very important time, given where we are with the IMF program and how to make sure that it is successful. Mr. President, we have, as you know, in December, we're able to secure the staff level agreement in record time so that we set up the macro issues. And then the second part was working out a debt treatment, which, you know, last week we concluded with the domestic debt treatment and already began the discussions with the Paris Club, which is a very important part of ensuring that we get to the board by mid-March. The issue of the common framework has been problematic for Africa, Zambia, Ethiopia, Chad, and therefore in going into that, we're very categorical that it has to be fast-tracked, and therefore they have to set up their creditor committee very quickly. They've acceded to that, and we hope that that would happen quickly. The big elephant in the room, of course, is China, as to how China will comport themselves in that for comparability of treatment, because China wants to do a bilateral. We will be visiting China at the end of the week to really discuss how they come into the envelope as quickly as possible. The German Minister of Finance was clear that he will put his weight behind ensuring that everybody is in the common framework so that we move quickly. So we are looking for that support from them. China represents about a third of the loan, the 5.7 billion loan to the bilaterals, and so it's important that we engage them strongly, especially before the G20 meetings in Bangalore. So that's going well. We completed the domestic debt exchange program, which is important for the board, and started discussions with the external bond holders. Then NDA is being worked on.
Now, the German Federal Minister for Economic Cooperation, Svenja Scholz, says a country will assist Ghana get a fair treatment at the Paris Club.
really important to stay in close contact together, because we're working together, Ghana and Germany, in a partnership over years, and visiting each other, getting in contact, having the opportunity to work on this friendship. That is really important for us. And Mr. President, I would like to thank you that you do the journey to Munich, to the Munich Security Conference, because Germany always advocate that the African continent having a strong voice on this conference. It is not just about the war in Ukraine, it is also about the problems that we see here on the African continent that needs to be discussed together, and you do that. I know you visit our Chancellor, and it is very important also to discuss what is going on here. I know that Ghana is really hard fighting against the spillover effects from Sahel, and that is the topic we want to discuss here, what we can do to work together on that. The Sahel Alliance is the alliance of the donors, and I think we need more walk the talk and need to discuss how we can also help Ghana and the other ones to get to deal with these spillover effects. And on the Munich Security Conference, you know, the war from Russia against Ukraine was very focused, and 1 year after the start, it's natural that we discuss about that. But I'm really happy, and we are really happy that we all are know that the rule of law is that what we want to win. That is what needs to be and to stay in the center. And we understood very well that Germany needs a friendship all over the world. That we need to build networks, build friendships also in this time.
Now, President Akufo-Addo reiterated Ghana's non-aligned stance against the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, but added the country is opposed to the war.
The response of Ghana towards the war in Europe. Our history has always been against great power domination of the affairs of the world. Right from is the reason why we led the fight for independence in Africa. We believe that this planet exists for all people, big powers as well as small powers, and that hegemonic tendencies and rules of the world should be curbed as much as possible. And that is the main reason for the position that we have taken. It's a principled one to do with our history. It's not an accident that we were one of the founders of the non-aligned movement. All of that has always been consistently to resist the idea that the big powers of the world have the freedom to do what they like on this planet. Never accepted that principle, whether it is Americans or Russians or Germans or French people or whatever. And it is the reason why we have expressed our displeasure at what has happened with the invasion of Ukraine. And it is very much part of the history of our country that we have stood and will continue to stand against the hegemonic influence in the world. So that's the principle that Ghana is upholding when we cast our vote against the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and it will be the position that we will continue to hold. Great powers trampling over small nations is not something that we welcome, and we will, within our modest means, we'll find a way of registering our disapproval of that.
Now, how much external debt does Ghana owe? Who are our creditors? What type of loans have we taken from them? Isaac Kufieje is with our research desk and joins me in studio with some answers. Now, what is the data saying?
Well, this is what we have on the touchscreen right now. Our total debt stock as a country is around almost $44 billion. And of this $44 billion, we have a lot, majority of it that we owe to external creditors, about 66.5% of the debt that we're talking about. So that's the chart. If you split our debt into two and you categorize into domestic and external, we owe our external creditors almost $30 billion, and domestic creditors almost $15 billion. We've been able to restructure a significant portion of our domestic debt stock. Now, there's a condition that we have to meet in the IMF negotiation that if your debt levels are unsustainable, you have to go ahead to do a debt restructuring before you get the chance to start the program. That is why we are done with the first phase, which is domestic debt. The next to tackle is the external debt. Now, with the external debt, there's a huge hurdle that we have to really cross as far as the external debt restructuring is concerned. So this is the picture as of September 2022. The nature of our external debt, those that we are owing our creditors. So if you look at China alone, we owe China alone about $1.7 billion, Euro bonds about $13.1 billion, and then other creditors, the Paris Club. So even if you combine Germany, France, US, all the other Paris Club countries, and you sum their debt, it's $1.9 billion, and China alone is around $1.7 billion. This is the reason why, if we really want to restructure our international or external debt, the first place we have to look at is China. Because the Paris Club, they have given us the green light that they are ready and then they want to restructure the debt. But one person that we have to look at right now is China.
Why not our Eurobonds and multilateral?
Well, Eurobonds, we can still go ahead to restructure. We have, the BlackRocks and other creditors who have huge capital. And so if you tell them I'm in a difficult situation, I want to restructure, you owe them just 13, they have, their portfolio is so huge that your 13 billion is just like a drop in the ocean, so they can afford to, restructure. But China, many say that when they borrow to you, they hide certain conditions as far as the loan is concerned. And so restructuring China's loan is very, very difficult. The perfect example or the perfect case we have is Congo Republic, where they wanted to restructure a total debt of $1.3 billion. Now, with China, they wanted debt cancellation. China said, hell no, I'm not going to give you debt cancellation. What I can do for you is to increase the maturity period and then also increase the interest rate that you are supposed to pay. So at the end of the day, instead of Congo Republic having a debt of $1.3 billion, they ended up having a debt of $1.6 billion, close to almost 24% increase as a result of the debt restructuring arrangement that they had with China. If you look at Zambia, for instance, Zambia, we know, had their staff level agreement in 2020, but because of the hurdle that they had to cross, the China and all that, it took them a long time. It was just in August that China decided to play ball. Now, Zambia wanted 100% cancellation. They wanted a write down on their debt. China said, no, the best we can do for you is to increase the maturity period and give us access to be part of your debt management. Now, we know that with Ghana, for instance, we do not know the nature of the debt. We just know the amount is 1.7 billion. But as to whether some of them or majority is interest-free, because we know that China is only willing to play ball if the debt is interest-free. So if it is not interest-free, they probably will have different conditions for you. They will tell you it's either we increase the maturity period or you increase the interest rate so that they can actually, it can actually offset the kind of change that the restructuring will cost as far as. So we have about 4 steps that we have to go through with our external debt restructuring. The first is to announce the default. We've announced it. We've told them that we can't, we can't do debt servicing in 2023. Although we've budgeted almost 52 billion Ghana cedis that we are supposed to service debt, we are telling them that it's impossible.
And it's because of the IMF conditions.
Exactly. The next step is to do the negotiation. That is why we have our high-powered, delegation going to China to start negotiations, still pending. Although the Paris Club, they've given us some hope that they will participate. But with China, we do not know the nature of how the talks is going to, turn out. Okay. We have to now offer them, some offer. Then they'll look at it and ask themselves, is it a good offer to follow? We heard Kojo, the Deputy Finance Minister, John Kuma, saying foreign creditors might enjoy, have a 30% haircut. They won't accept China won't accept it.
Okay.
China is likely not to accept, a haircut. So we ask ourselves, the debts we are owing to China, do we have majority of them being interest-free, or is at a commercial level that they may not accept a haircut or a restructuring? So
interesting.
Wait to see.
Interesting stats there now. Bernard Anaba is a policy analyst with ISODEC. He joins us on Zoom, via Zoom, for some interaction on this. Now, Bernard, I'm grateful that you could join us. How would you describe Africa's economic relationship with China? All right, so we're on with Bernard, who is with ISODEC. He's a policy analyst. We want to understand what the relationship is like with China. And again, what to expect was the delegation moving from Ghana to China is to meet the authorities. They want to know what the country should expect when China comes to the table. And again, what we know so far about our some of our creditors as well, what the US is doing, what UK is doing. The German people promised that they will help Ghana to get a fair deal with the Paris Club. We want to understand what our creditors, some other creditors aside China, are also doing. We've heard that some people have already formed some credit committee to try and then get Ghana to the table because they are prepared for what's coming. And so we want to understand what the issues are. I think we are told that some of our creditors are aware of our situation, and it is in their interest to help Ghana out of this. And I'm told that when countries are in such difficulties, these creditors come around to help them out of it.
Absolutely.
And so we expect that these countries will come to the table to play ball. Yeah. We understand Bernard is on Zoom now. Bernard, we wanted to understand what sort of relationship China has with Ghana in terms of crediting and when we owe them as well. Bernard, if you are with me, I want to understand from you, when it comes to China, the sort of relationship that we do have with China as a creditor and a borrower.
Yeah, thank you, and good evening to your viewers. Sorry the line got bad. Yes, I think we have had a very good relationship in terms of development relationship with China over some time now. And particularly if you look at infrastructure development across Africa, China has been very forthcoming. If you look at most other African countries, especially Ethiopia, China has been very instrumental in their infrastructure development. And even in Ghana, along the line, we had the CDB loan, which was supposed to be for some infrastructure, which didn't go through very well. Currently, we have the Sino-Hydro facility. We have other facilities in terms of development oriented. So China has been very, instrumental in the development life of most African countries, particularly in Ghana as well.
But how would you describe Africa's economic relationship with China?
Yes, so that's what I'm saying, that it has been good in terms of infrastructure, in terms of giving us a different kind of funding from what we know from our European or Western partners. China has heavily given us in terms of infrastructure-related funding. And that's why I said, if we take an example of the Sino-Hydro loan, it's more of an infrastructure-related funding and different kind of funding from what we originally know from the Western kind of credit and other things.
At what cost will this debt cancellation come to Ghana if China should agree?
Yes, definitely it will be at a cost, and depending on how much debt that you will owe to China, in particular ours is 1.7 as we hear. I think if you compare 1.7 to the other over 20-something billion, that is not so much. We expect China to be, to be magnanimous, to be able to come around the table to, reduce or cancel a significant portion of that debt, and also to help encourage the other creditors to also give us that relief. So I don't think it's going to be so much of a cost to China if you look at the level of debt in comparison to other creditors.
Is China a better lender than the West?
Well, it's a difficult thing to say because sometimes the lending, in terms of the kind of instrument or the kind of conditions that you get, may vary from country to country and from facility to facility. And as I said, most of the China facilities are usually infrastructure based, and sometimes it's difficult to compare. But I think this is also, in terms of this period of debt restructuring, will also prove whether they are a better lender or creditor to us compared to our traditional creditors. So it's also part of the deal that once you are in a relationship, a kind of market relationship in terms of credit, then you also expect that when you are in trouble or you are in difficulties, you are able to work together to find a proper way forward. And if they are not willing to do that, then definitely that will also mean that going into the future, we should be careful how we deal with China.
What sort of implication will it be for defaulting in this particular terms?
Yes, in terms of defaulting, what it means is that it's going to prolong our access to the international market. And, you know, the whole idea of going to the IMF for a loan is to be able to service your debt and also to say that you are more or less credit worthy. And so that the international market or credit market are able to open their doors to you, so we're able to go back to borrowing as usual, as we had done in the past, so that we'll have the hope that our economy will develop, we'll get the funding to develop the economy, the opportunities that we have to, you know, fund, we are able to fund them. So if we are not able to, you know, pay and not able to get the money to pay our lender, then definitely it's going to prolong our access to the international credit market.
Okay. Now, critics have long accused Beijing of practicing debt trap diplomacy, suggesting it deliberately lends to countries that it knows cannot repay the money, thereby increasing its political leverage. What do you think of this?
Can you repeat that again? Sorry.
I'm saying that, you know, people have accused China of what they term as, debt trap diplomacy, suggesting it deliberately lends to countries it knows cannot repay the money, thereby increasing its political leverage, you know, over these countries. What do you, as a policy analyst, think of this particular suggestion?
Well, yes, you may say that, but I don't think it's only China. It is also with all our other creditors, even the Western creditors. If you look at in terms of the rate of borrowing, in terms of the terms of borrowing, it's often not concessionary. It's often to the extent that it says that we are very risky, we pay risk premium, we presume that definitely we are going to fall into, you know, a ditch. So that presumption is more of, you know, something that seems to, you know, come true. And it's not only China, but it's all our creditors. So it is a structural problem, usually with poor countries or African countries in general. And that is some of the reasons that we are saying that, look, we need to cancel most of the debt, because they have tended to make huge profits off us, saying that we are not creditworthy, we are going to default, we are, you know, so risky. And that has cast. Their own prophecy has come true. So why not be willing to take us some of the cost of that? You know, but generally, it's just that as poor countries, we haven't had a fair deal around the world. So it's been difficult to actually develop in peace, because the cost of our borrowing has often been high, the terms and other things has often been high. So it always keeps us into that red line, and that is something that we need to, you know, fight against.
All right, I'm grateful to you for joining us. Bernard Anaba is a policy analyst with ISODEC. Now, government of Ghana says it is expecting a total of 152,000 tons of fuel under the Good for Oil arrangement by end of this month. As part of this second consignment, 40,000 metric tons of fuel arrived at the Tema port on February 19, 2023. The Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Baomi, announced some time ago the government was going into a Good for Oil arrangement to rationalize the import of petroleum products, including the foreign exchange ramifications. Last week, the managing director of the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Limited, BOST, Edwin province revealed 4 separate gasoline cargoes will be delivered by end of February. He spoke on Joy News.
Of the status of the incoming cargoes for February, we are expecting a total of 152,000 metric tons, made up of 80,000 gas oil and then 72,000 gasoline.
Oh, okay. So give us a breakdown in terms of volumes of petrol and, of course, diesel.
I just did. The petrol is the gasoline, which is 72,000, and then the diesel is the gas oil, which is 80,000.
All right. So when exactly are we likely to see this?
So they'll start coming in from the 19th. In terms of the status of the incoming cargoes for February, we are expecting a total of 152,000 metric tons, made up of 80,000 gas oil and then 72,000 gasoline.
Oh, okay. So give us a breakdown in terms of volumes of petrol and, of course, diesel.
I just did. The petrol is the gasoline, which is 72,000, and then the diesel is the gas oil, which is 80,000.
All right. So when exactly are we likely to see this?
So they'll start coming in from the 19th, which is somewhere Sunday, till the end of the month.
All right. So
every week we'll have 2 till the end of the month.
The National Petroleum Authority is the regulator of the sector. Joining us from the MPA is the head of economic regulation, Abbas Ibrahim Tusanti. Now, Abbas, I'm grateful that you could join us. What is the procedure for the sharing of this fuel under this arrangement? Hello, Abbas. Are you with me? Abbas, can you unmute so we can follow what you're saying? Great.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, so let me maybe give a background as to how the first cargo that came in last month was distributed. As we are aware, Bost as a company does not sell petroleum products to oil marketing companies directly. It imports and then sells to the bulk import, distribution and export companies who then sell to the oil marketing companies. So based on the commercial arrangements between the Bost and these bulk import, distribution and export companies, which we usually call the BDCs, they lift the products from Bost and then supply to oil marketing companies. With the first cargo, these BDCs sold to oil marketing companies also based on their commercial terms. But I'm sure you may have heard some concerns from particularly the Association of Oil Marketing Companies regarding how the application was done to the oil marketing companies and requested for some level of fairness and clarity as to how the qualification criteria or what the qualification criteria for oil marketing companies supplying this product should be. Because the volumes that are being imported cannot meet 100% of the country's demand, we have to make sure that there's kind of a criteria that ensures that we are fairly distributing these products. Being mindful of the fact that the objective of the program is that the low price that is we are getting from this program reflects at the pump for consumers to benefit from it. The first cargo that was distributed, it was distributed in such a manner that it was a bit difficult to see the impact at the pump. So apart from Gore, who was one of the major oil marketing company whose prices was seen clearly, it was a bit difficult for the others because these are companies that most of them had very few outlets also scattered across the country, and we could not see that. So together with the Association of Oil Marketing Companies, we came up with a criteria. And this criteria is we looked at the top 25 oil marketing companies for last year's distribution of petrol and diesel. So, and also companies that have a minimum of 45 retail outlets. Okay. So between the minimum 45 retail outlets, so we have about 18 oil marketing companies that meet this qualification. Oh. Apart from the fact that these should be companies that are in good standing with the National Petroleum Authority in terms of having paid their license fees and also not indebted to the Ghana Revenue Authority in terms of payment of taxes and levies to the state. So with this criteria, we have been able to come up with these companies, and it has been agreed that it's a fair criteria to use for now. As the volumes that are being imported under the program increase, then the scope can be expanded to include other oil marketing companies. So this is the criteria that is being used to distribute or allocate the products that are being imported to the oil marketing companies.
And once you do this, what is the measure being put in place to ensure that indeed there is that reflection at the pump so that the ordinary Ghanaian can really feel it?
So that's the role that the National Petroleum Authority is playing also to ensure that the consumer benefits from this reduction in the prices that come under the program. So what we do is that because we are a regulator, we supervise how the pricing is done by these oil marketing companies. In as much as the market is deregulated and we allow the oil marketing companies to determine their own prices. Under the Good for Oil program, the price for that product is regulated as we issued in our press release. So once that price is regulated, we ensure that any oil marketing company that is lifting this product, and it goes into the mix of products they have lifted from other sources. Mind you, like I said, this Good for Oil program currently is not meeting 100% of the demand for oil marketing companies. So where an oil marketing company has lifted this product, if the volume they've lifted does not meet 100% of their demand, then we would have to look at the use of the weighted average to arrive at the computation or determination of their prices. So the price of the Good for Oil product and the price from the other sources have to be mixed to arrive at their pump prices. So we keenly monitor their pricing to ensure that the price reflects at their pump. And like I said, if you notice in the previous window, Gore started the price of diesel, the window at the price of diesel at 15.9 cedis. Immediately they took the consignment of the Good for Oil, it dropped to 15.25.
Okay.
There were other OMCs who also revised their prices downward, because what we do is that once the OMCs lift, we monitor what volumes they lifted from under the program and ensure that the price reflects in at the pumps.
Grateful to you for joining us. Now, for the ordinary Ghanaian to benefit from this arrangement, transport fares must correspondingly reduce. How will this arrangement lead to the reduction? Joining us for more on this is Samuel Amoah, a member of the National Communications Team for the GPR. To you, Samuel, grateful. First of all, what do you make of this particular arrangement?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me say good evening to your viewers. What we say is that our expectation is for us to see the fuel prices coming down. And then if it comes down, we have no option than we also have to think of reducing our transport fares, because we normally say that anytime the transport fare goes up, our businesses, it affects our businesses. In terms of passengers coming to the station, it reduces, because most of the passengers, when the prices or the transport fares are high, most of our clients, prefer to walk, in some short distances. So now that they are saying they are working on things for the fuel prices to come down, that is our expectation. But it shouldn't just be a saying, but it should reflect. We should see it live at the pump. You see, when they say it and it's not reflecting at the pump, then it means we are not seeing it. And someone will also say that if the fuel prices are coming down, it's supposed to come down to a certain margin before we can also think of adjusting our fares or reducing our transport fares. If I recall, during the time we were asked to reduce our fares by 15.3. By then, the diesel price was around 16.10 when we were asked to reduce it. Okay. And then our expectation is that it should come down again to about 11.3 and below. Okay. The reason why we are mentioning 11.3 and below is that when we first increased our transport fares by 20% in May, by then the diesel price was around 11.3 when we increased it by 20%. Right, then it jumped up to 15.99. Then we did another increment. Okay. So now that the diesel price is around 15 cedis per liter, our expectation is that if the ordinary Ghanaian, or if our clients, are waiting for us to reduce our transport fares, then we should pray that it should come down below the 11.3.
Okay.
Before we can also think of reducing our transport fares.
Okay, thank you. I think your point is well made. I'm grateful that you could join us. Samuel is a member of the National Communications Team for the GPR. To you now, still to come here on Join This Prime. Majority leadership appeal to new minority leadership to ignore directive of the NDC to reject latest ministerial appointment made by President Akufo-Addo. We have details as they say they do not intend to use their numbers to push through the president's nominees. Deputy Minister Designate for Trade and Industry, Stephen Amwa, says he did nothing wrong when under his tenure, funds belonging to Maslog were splashed on tables for onward distribution as loans. Dr. Stephen Amwa also explained what his vision is for the One District, One Factory if he is confirmed.
It's the second day of vetting for President Akufo-Addo's ministerial nominees. Already, the committee has vetted 3 ministers that President Akufo-Addo has appointed. Katie Hammond. It has also heard from Obi Amwa. Just gone by, we had heard from the Honourable Member of Parliament for Inshiasu constituency, the Honourable Stephen Amwa, who's been making his plans known in terms of what he wants to do. He has also been talking about the One District, One Factory and his plans to ensure that at some point, some commodities in this country are fully produced here.
In English, development is a process, not event. What the honourable member is saying is perfectly true, but I think remarkably, look at the things here. At least we don't import virgin coconut oil. Not that I know. I could be wrong. We've done a lot of them. We still import some because we have not been able to locally produce to meet domestic demand. But we'll get there one day.
Dr. Stephen Amwa has been responding to questions from Alhassan Suhuyini on his role at Maslog, and we know that some monies were splashed on some tables during that period. He says that that is the standard operating procedure and that nothing wrong was done.
Meanwhile, barely 24 hours after speaking tough and castigating the minority for announcing that they will reject the latest ministerial nominees, leadership of the majority have circled back and making an appeal. Majority Chief Webb told journalists in Parliament that for the sake of unity and cooperation in Parliament, the new leadership of the minority must disregard the directive from the party to reject the nominees and approve them.
Make an appeal, and I pray you convey my message in an undiluted form to the target appropriately. You are aware our colleagues in the minority, their party has issued a directive that they should all go against the nominees for the various ministerial portfolios put out by His Excellency the President. And that was announced by Parliament duly, the Speaker and the appropriate referral done. Okay, so there have been back and forth arguments about the merits and demerits in this directive. I am just appealing to our colleagues. I am not basing my appeal on any constitutional provision. Of course, we all know the requirements, what it takes to become a Minister of State and a Member of Parliament. These things are spelled out.
Now, Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante joins us with the details. Kweku, it was only yesterday that the Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin responded to the minority. Remind us of exactly what he said.
Into the Deputy Majority Leader, it appeared the NDC new leadership in the House did not have their own thinking abilities and that they had to take the party directing them. And he was speaking about the Constitution to say that all these appointees qualify and that the NDC were simply bluffing.
Let me state that the rejection or otherwise of a nominee is constitutional. A general secretary of a political party cannot sit in his party office and issue a press statement for purpose of political expediency, direct members of parliament to reject the nominees of the president. It's a sign of disrespect to parliament, a sign of disrespect to the speaker, and clearly what the NDC is telling Ghanaians is that they don't respect the constitution.
Now, the majority have the numbers to railroad their way through. Why are they making this new appeal?
I put that question specifically to the majority chief whip as to why they are not using their numbers. They will have 137 on the floor. The NDC will only have 136. He says that his experience in leadership has shown that you do not always have to use your numbers to railroad through in parliament, and that he had learned the lessons and will not be doing so. The reason why he's sending out this appeal.
I'm not too experienced and too old in leadership, but I've come to realize that the more you defeat your colleague with your numbers, the yawning the gap between the two of you becomes. So we engage in a fight. You're always beating me. You're always defeating me. You're always defeating me. So you're pushing me to a wall. And one day I will strike. However I strike, I don't care. I have to also win. So it's not just about the numbers. Of course we can get our numbers. I'm looking more into the future, how we can work seamlessly and harmoniously together.
Grateful to you, Kweku Asante from Parliament there. Now, with only days to go, there has been an increase in attacks on police in Nigeria ahead of the presidential election on Saturday. Since the weekend, 7 officers have been killed in the southeast of the country, where a separatist movement is seeking autonomy. Coupled with the scarcity of cash, pockets of violence have erupted in parts of the country as many queue for hours and sometimes days to withdraw money from the banks. Some Nigerians in Ghana may not be able to travel to Nigeria to cast their ballot, as many are unable to access the needed cash because of a botched rollout of new banknote. Let's go live to Nigeria now. Reporter and State House correspondent for Channels Television, Kayla Megwa, joins me on Zoom now with details of recent happenings. Megwa, I'm grateful that you're joining us. What's the atmosphere in Nigeria now?
Good evening. Yes, you pretty much nailed it. It's a lot of uncertainty. Not uncertainty as to whether the elections are going to hold or not. We have gotten messages from the Independent National Electoral Commission stating categorically that the elections will be holding. The uncertainty that I talked about is the fact that many Nigerians are just uncomfortable right now. You know, there's a lot of insecurity going on with the redesign of the bank notes and the challenges in its wake. We have seen a lot of attacks on banks across the country, well, mostly in the southern part of the country, but a lot of attacks. So a lot of people who work in banks are very scared right now. And we can see security operatives also, you know, trying to make sense of the situation and take decisive action, because as many people know, when it comes to violence in Nigeria, it can actually be used. So criminal elements can hide behind a legitimate protest to carry out nefarious activities. And that's what one of the biggest fears is, a legitimate angst on the part of Nigerians. I don't have access to my money. I don't know how I'm going to feed in the next few days. I don't know how I'm going to handle this election period. I just don't have my money. Someone could take advantage of that to perpetrate violence. And we're talking about it recently. Banks have money inside them. So they are a very prime target for crime and criminality. Someone could actually take advantage of this situation to perpetrate violence. Meanwhile, the elections are just around the corner, and you nailed it. Parts of the country, especially in the southeast, we're seeing attacks on INEX facilities, attacks on security operatives, you know, as separatist groups, of course, you know, taking advantage of the, you know, unease in the country to perpetrate their acts and whatnot. So yes, it's a pretty tense and uncertain atmosphere. But one thing we do know is that the elections will be holding on the 25th of February. We're looking at 109 senatorial districts, 360 constituencies, you know, in this our bicameral federal legislature, you know, and all these 2 elections are going to be happening on the same day on the 25th. So it's going to happen. That is sacrosanct, according to the election empire and to the presidency, but a lot of uncertainty out there.
Grateful that you could join us with this update from Nigeria. Keep safe. So that's Megwa. She is with the Channels Television in Abuja, Nigeria. We'll take a quick break when... So welcome to the showbiz segment of the show. And the queen of the thing, Becky Bex is here, you know.
I'm always
looking,
here.
Charlie.
Oh, look at me. I'm on TV. But we don't have time. Brace, we don't have time. You know, the last time I was playing a Majid SOT here, and you were asking me exactly what was wrong with his voice. I said, well, he didn't really talk about it. He did some...
He said he doesn't know. He's done some... He's gone to the hospital for test here and there.
But not too long ago, your questions have been answered. He's been talking about how he lost his voice.
The race from GBC they come. So Mercedes E-Class and so other car. The jam on the back. Boom! Crazy whiplash. So the whole ass of my car came all the way to the back seat. Collins was at the back. Yeah. So I go a mad whiplash. Lonnie, listen, this is my first time telling the story. Because number one, I never associated with this. But listen, immediately we got out from the car, my voice started breaking when I was talking to the guy. My voice was breaking. Do you know, every time I tell the doctors this, they tell me, no, it can never be from that. But I said that particular right after the accident, when I got out from the car, when I was talking, my voice was breaking. It was like if I talk, it breaks. If I talk, it breaks. All the doctors said it can never be from the accident. But I remember, and this is my first time saying this on radio. When there was an accident, that night of the right there on the scene of the accident, when I got out from the car, my voice was breaking.
Were you crying or were you shout? Were you yelling at
No. Me, I'm very calm in chaos. I'm very, very calm in chaos. If the building starts burning right now, you see how everybody's crowded. Only me, I'll be here. I'm very calm in chaos.
Well, so Majid, right there. Let's move away. Let's talk about Independence concert. It's a concert that is coming up. Miss V is the one headlining it. She was on Joy Prime, and she's been telling us all about it. She says that this event is one not to miss.
Last year, December, I went on holiday. After my shows, I went on holiday to the Volta region, and then there's this beautiful resort there, Reddington Chalets. It's a beautiful beachfront property. Honestly, when I saw it online, I couldn't believe there was a place like that in the Volta region. Okay. So it's close to Angnoga, it's close to Wuti. It's in Wuti. It's close to Keta, close to Angnoga. And I was there for 2 nights. I went with my team to just chill. And then management said, oh, you know, we should do something next year. And I thought, like, it's perfect because when I look at the pool side and I look at the setting of the place, it would be very nice to have like a beautiful concert where people come with their family, loved ones, lovers, you know, to just come and chill. So yeah, on 4th March, Independence Weekend, that's when we planned it. So we don't want it to be the regular Independence Weekend from 4th to 6th March. We want to actually get away from Accra. We've watched the boring parades. I'm sorry, they're not boring.
And that'll be all for Showbiz.
And that's how we wrap today's bulletin. There's more news on myjoyonline.com. My name is Samuel Brace, but today is International Mother Tongue Day. So Becky, you speak your language, I speak mine. In my language,
if we had time, I would have played something.
No, just say bye-bye. In my language, if you want to say thank you, say malawase. Inti malawase ke hraleme on mine. To wait. Thank you that you've watched us. Becky, what do you say in your
language?
I
have 2 languages. There's Tree and there's Ebe. So, mida kwena mikata be mi pomi mi myjoyonline.com. Vibes chele myjoyonline.com.
That's what it is. Speak your language. It will be good for you.